So today we are doing a bread pudding, but we are adding some rum to the mix and some salted caramel with more rum because rum is life. It we rolling? Okay, now if I had legs as nice as this rum, I'd be a happy camper. Hi, I'm Lisa Marie Stewart, otherwise known as the Cake Madame, and today we are doing a raisin bread pudding, but with some rum added, as well as some salted caramel with more rum added to it. So we're doing the Tamboo rum today, and I've had a few sips before we started just to kind of get a flavor profile going on it, and I must say, the fragrances coming off of it is going to lend really nicely to this recipe. So we take one more sip and we're going to start, maybe two. So as we begin, we have three different types of bread we're working with here. We have a white hops, a whole wheat hops, and some ends of lemon loaf that I had. I said, you know what, let me throw it in for something different. You can use basically whatever bread you are comfortable with to do this. All right, so the first thing we are going to do is butter the bread. So just let me make some room so you all can see what I'm doing, and we take it from there. I'm just cutting them in half basically. It doesn't need a heavy amount of butter. Just a light buttering on each one. All right, so we're just going to start with these first. To make life easier, you can just put one on the other. You don't need to dice them too small or too thick, because you're going to use your hands to get into it, to just kind of give it a little squeeze to get the flavors in properly. So this is going to be, as I said, a little more than 2 cups of bread, but don't worry about it. Whatever the milk doesn't soak up, you can add rum to fill up the rest. You can always add rum. It's one of those recipes that even if you think you put too much liquid, you can always add more bread. So it's not a recipe to stress over at all. It's just a very easy going comfort food sort of recipe. Right, so here you have both types of, well, 3 types of bread, and just mix it up a bit. So I find incorporating these spices into the milk itself actually helps me to get an even distribution of flavor throughout it. So I'm going to start with is the eggs. Always crack your eggs separately, no matter how good they look on the outside. You can get shells into your stuff. You can literally lose shells below it. I know from experience in past things, so always do that. Just give it a little whisk. So the sugar you can leave to put in last, because that is actually going to distribute quite easily once you have the milk in it. If I put it in now, most of it is going to sink to the bottom, and you'll get too much of a sweet part in just one part of the pudding itself, which is what you don't want. You can move the butter aside now. So I'm going to start with adding 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon cardamom. Now, this is one of my favorite spices. Do not sleep on ground cloves. It's very strong, but it incorporates itself nicely into foods. It just warms it up really well. Do not put a lot, just a very little, or it would overpower what you're doing. Some almond essence, cinnamon. So this is Badawi's, what it is?
Orange.
Right.
Yeah,
Orange peel, dried orange peel that he used in his spice blender. and we have a nice powder something going on here. You need to smell the aroma of this. It is absolutely amazing. So I said, you know what, it's going to be really great to add to the recipe to give it some body, because sometimes when you add things like lemon zest, orange zest to these things, it really wakes it up and wakes up your taste buds even more. So that goes right in there. Some nutmeg. I mean, you can grate until your ancestors tell you to stop. It's basically what I do. You see this little beauty right here? It's one of my favorite things in the kitchen, tonka bean. I initially was going to use vanilla. But I said, you know what? Let me keep it as local as I can and use the tonka bean. Tonka bean is, I can't even explain what it tastes like or smell like to you. It has its own character. And you don't need much of it. Same way you don't need too much nutmeg, you don't need too much tonka bean, because a little will go a long way. Another thing I like to do with ends of tonka bean and nutmeg is drop it in some alcohol and make an extract. So you don't feel like you're wasting. So when you get to the point where you cannot grate anymore, just keep a little bottle, maybe about this size, maybe a little bigger. You can upsize as you go, and you can actually use the rum itself. I use vodka most times, but you can actually use rum itself also. So you just pour some in the bottle and you just drop your ends in. And as it goes down, you add more rum, you add more, and it just continuously keeps on giving you flavor. So the times I am a little too lazy to grate tonka bean or nutmeg, that's my shortcut to, yeah, just throw this in and say God is love. Yes. You just pour it over your bread. This is where you add your sugar. Now what I tend to do, if a recipe calls, now this recipe calls for a half cup of sugar. I tend to put like a third of a cup, somewhere between a third and a half, because you don't want it. I don't like even my cakes or anything I'm doing, I don't like it too sweet. Right, so this way now everything would hold together. And this is the fun part. Rum soaked raisins. Now it says half cup, but you know, when the ancestors tell me that's enough, that's when I will stop. We could actually even do, let's just drain the rum that has already soaked up the flavor of the raisins into it. When I opened this and smell it, the smell hit me like a ton of bricks, but it was nice. So what we did prior to the recipe was soak the raisins in the tamboo rum for about 2 days. You can soak it for longer, you can soak it as long as you want. It's not going to fall apart or anything. Now you can see it's starting to get mushy now. Good mush, not bad mush. So if you want, you can actually let it stay like this, because I know some people like their bread pudding with a bit more texture. How my mom used to do it, because it's she who introduced me to this recipe, is you just put your hands in it, clean hands, and you just give it a little squeeze. Not too much, because you still want some pieces to remain just a little whole. And when you're doing this, just enjoy the process. I mean, enjoy it. Enjoy tasting as you go along, smelling each thing as you go along. That's how you, at least for me, that's how I really get familiar with my flavors, my spices. I know what goes with what. Just really enjoying the process. So what I'm going to do is, because I don't want to have an accident and splatter everything, I'm going to pour a little bit of the water, the hot water in here, just to demonstrate how it should be poured. But I'm going to pour the majority of it in the oven, because I don't want any accidents. But that we can't mind me. All right. God, if you smell this thing, my goodness. And just spread it out. It's an effortless kind of thing. So while this is baking, we'll do the salted caramel, the salted rum caramel, to show you how that process looks. Just pouring a little bit here. I'm going to finish off the rest in the oven. It's a wonder, but that way he asked me if I put bay leaf. Actually, no, he did ask me. You had asked me for bay leaf for the recipe. No, but that way the recipe does not need bay leaf. Everything does not need bay leaf, but that way.
Bay leaf is bay, though.
This is why you are saved in my phone as Bay Dawi. Okay? Bay leaf, everything for you.
Yes.
So now we move on to the salted caramel with some rum part of it. All right, so we have a 1 cup of sugar here. So we start with. So you're going to 1 cup of white sugar. What you want to do is keep pushing the sugar around, because what is going to happen, it's going to change color and it needs to brown evenly before you add in the butter, which is, we have here 6 tablespoons of butter. All right, so what you're seeing now is the sugar is starting to melt. Now, you keep pushing it around the pot because you don't want it to stick. It takes a while. It may take about a good 7 minutes to get it to this point, but just keep pushing it around, and you want it to get to a caramel color. And what I suggest, when you get to the desired color that you want, which we are here right now, remove it from the heat. I remove it from the heat to add the butter in because it could bubble up a little bit. And now you put it back onto the stove. So you stir you see that nice golden caramel color that you get? That is exactly what you're aiming for. It literally is the same color as the rum right now. So what you're going for is more or less having the butter and the sugar combined. It's not going to combine completely until you add the heavy cream to it. So don't worry, that's going to bring it back together. So say you do this for about 2 minutes, so. Then you add your cream. You just keep stirring it around for another 2 minutes again. All right, so you see you have a nice thread running off here. That's what you want, smooth. So you add the salt. You just need 1 teaspoon. No more than that, because the butter also has salt in it already too. No, not measuring out, no rum to tell you how much to put. Just do pour plenty. Go until the ancestors tell you stop. Okay? All right, it might be about a tablespoon, but go until the ancestors tell you stop. If you want less, if you want more, you can add, but you don't want to change the consistency of the caramel sauce too much. You still want it to have this nice, thick, smooth viscosity. All right. This is the part I like. Adding some tonka bean to it. Now for the rum. Rum dance. You pour in. Right, so when you're pouring it, just add a little bit at a time. It's about a tablespoon. Just about. And you wouldn't need any more than that. Now, of course, if you're feeling generous, you can also just graciously pour rum in the pudding after you finish too. So if you think you don't have enough rum, you just keep putting. It's a good consistency. It has little bits of the tonka bean in it. And that's it, that's your caramel sauce right there. Now make sure and do this off the heat, because you don't want it to continue cooking to burn the sugar some more, to get a bit of flavor in. Because if you get that bit of flavor in and try to add the rum after, the rum would kind of amplify that bitterness even more, which is what you don't want. Listen, come out real nice, if I may say so myself. And this is not me tooting my own. You know what? This is me tooting my own horn. We know how it tastes in yet. We've been trying to wait for it to cool down sufficiently, but we're just going to dive into it. So if it breaks apart a bit because it's still hot, don't hate us. We could not wait because it just smells amazing. Ah, there you go. See that? Yes. All right, so here's the fun part. Stick a little bit. Yeah, man. That we talking about. Look at that. You just drizzle that over there. Now, every now and then I like to get high off my own supplier. This don't happen often, but there are some things that I really do love, and a good homemade or a good properly well-made bread pudding is one of them. So I'll try not to burn my mouth. Good texture. You're getting the spices coming through. Marries nicely with the salted caramel. It's not too strong on one thing more than the other, so I'm pretty happy with this one. One of the nice, now I know not everyone likes raisins, so you can actually do the recipe without raisins too, or you can even substitute cranberries, blueberries, the dried ones, and also soak them in the rum also. Because what I like, because it soaks up the rum and you bite into it, even if you just taste one of the fruits by itself, it plumps up really nicely in the baking process. We have one I'm watching here, so if only poke you with a fork right now with bus. And it really just, I had Badawi taste one without the pudding or anything. Because what you don't want that the raisins are just there for decoration. They have to add value to the meal. It has to add value to it. So that's why I had him soak it for the 2 days. So when you see a bite into that, you're getting something else coming out of the raisins to an extra boost of flavor that just ties nicely in with all the other spices there. You don't want it lost in the sauce. We would really like to thank Massey Stores and Angostura Tamboo Spiced Rum for sponsoring this episode. Wishing you all the best for this Christmas season and beyond, and stay safe.